G'day and welcome back to the channel Ginger Ninja's Movie Reviews. I am the Ginger Ninja and these are my Franchise Friday movie reviews. If you're new to my channel, thank you very much for tuning in, stopping by and checking it out. If you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up button, it'd be much appreciated. And of course, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please do consider subscribing. That would definitely be appreciated. Now, I want to say a big thank you to all my new and existing subscribers, as I do every week. You're probably sick of me saying it, but thank you so much for your continued support. Now, moving on. What are we looking at today? We are looking at the third film in the Universal Soldier series. We are looking at Universal Soldier Regeneration from 2009. So this one's 10 years later from Universal Soldier, The Return, and yeah, things have changed. This film was directed by John Hyams, and of course it stars Jean Claude Van Damme. We see a returning Dolphlundgren. I don't know how that happens. They kind of explain it, but anyway. We've also got Andreiarlovski, Emily Joyce, and Chris Van Damme. Yeah, Van Damme's son's in this one. Yeah, so anyway, moving on. The plot. When terrorists threaten nuclear catastrophe at Chernobyl, the world's only hope is to reactivate decommissioned Universal Soldier Luc Deveraux. So yeah, this film is technically the third in the Universal Soldier series if you exclude the made-for-TV movies, but it also feels like a hard reset, kind of skipping the 1999 Universal Soldier The Return. And it definitely opts for a grimier atmosphere with more of a raw depiction of violence and warfare that suits the plot. And unfortunately, that may alienate fans of the original's tone, which was more, had a lighter tone to it. This one, it's much darker. Even the setting, like the cinematography, which I'll touch on later. And I have said it before when it comes to long-standing franchises. They need to do something different to make it stay relevant, to reinvigorate and relight that fire in a franchise and maintain. And this film does that. It doesn't just try to revive the franchise, it reanimates it with a mix of intense action and a bleak atmosphere, but also an engaging plot, something that was missing from the last one. So I think that 10-year break gave it time to mature, so to speak. Now, this entry might not have been on your radar because I don't hear a lot of people talking about this one, but it's definitely worth talking about. So grab some popcorn and let's break down the good, the bad, and the brutal of Universal Soldier Regeneration.
Franchise Fridays on the screen, horror shows, zombies scream, vampires biting, shadows gleam, slasher delights in my dream. Shark master swims in fear, ghouls and ghosts, they appear. Sci-fi flicks, end is near, join the horror, shed a tear.
Now, kicking off with the cast, and we've got Van Damme returning as Luc Deveraux. And his portrayal is surprisingly nuanced. And unlike the invincible action hero stereotype, this Deveraux is weary and broken and a man haunted by his past, which he's barely remembering. He just knows that he wasn't a good person. Yeah, and it's this understated approach combined with moments of raw emotion in the first two acts. It lends to an unexpected depth. It's very different to previous entries where, especially in the first one, he was kind of a blank slate. In the second one, he was a more emotional person, he was a more human person. In this one, very different again. And this one kind of, like I said, kind of skips that second one, and it's things have not went well for him. Now, Dolph Lundgren, and bringing back Dolph Lundgren as Andrew Scott could have been a very cheap nostalgia grab. given that he wasn't in the previous film and the way they sent him off in the first one, didn't really give much of an option to bring him back, did it? Well, they did. And look, while his character's resurrection lacks a really in-depth and sufficient explanation, the script just fails to explore his motivations or potential complexities. It does provide a link for the next film, and his scenes in this are memorable, and his unhinged philosophical monologues just add a bizarre yet entertaining layer to the chaos. Again, Andrew Scott, Dolphlundgren, fantastic job. And then we've got the next generation of unisols, led by UFC champion Andreiarlovski. And hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, because this guy's a freaking beast. Now, I'm not into UFC. I've never really watched a lot. I don't follow it. But this guy is just intimidating, and he is relentless. His physical performance is very impressive, and it makes him a very genuinely terrifying antagonist. But the lack of personality or backstory also makes him a very one-dimensional antagonist. Yeah, other characters are fine, but we're here for the muscle and not the brains. Getting straight into the directing and the writing, and look, at just over 90 minutes, this film wastes no time. It sidesteps any convoluted plots or forced love stories in favor of straightforward, high-stakes missions. The pacing is relentless in this one, and it delivers a sci-fi action thriller that embraces its identity. It's all killer, no filler. Grim in tone and graphic in violence, it trades cheesy one-liners for a bleak existential despair, particularly in light of Deveraux's character. Luc Deveraux is a broken, almost zombie-like figure, and he is grappling with a fragile shred of humanity. It's a narrative choice that's very unexpected and adds depth to the chaos. The film's stripped-down storytelling avoids the pitfalls of overcomplicated twists that are often found in sci-fi sequels. It bypasses unnecessary exposition about events from prior installments, pretty much ignoring all of two. And it opts for, instead, a minimalist approach that keeps the focus firmly on the action and atmosphere. The urgency of the hostage crisis, coupled by Deveraux's inner turmoil, it creates compelling stakes that hold the viewer's attention. Now, there's also the setting, Chernobyl. This almost post-apocalyptic backdrop is a masterstroke. Peter Hyams, who did the cinematography, I think he's John Hyams, the director's father, he crafts a desaturated and chilling aesthetic that actually amplifies the film's isolation and despair. The abandoned reactor becomes a very haunting stage, evoking a feel of a war zone horror and further cementing the film's intense atmospheric identity. Now onto the effects, and look, the sound effects. From the gunfight to the heavy impacts of the fistfights, they enhance the brutal feel of this film. The soundtrack, however, is very reminiscent of 80s Italian schlock horror. And by that I mean, if you've seen Hell of the Living Dead, the music used around the chemical plant is very similar to the music used here around the abandoned Chernobyl reactor. It's not a bad thing, but the sound is very 80s, and it just kind of seems a little out of place. The physical effects, decent. The reliance on practical effects, especially during the fight scenes, shootouts, it enhances the visceral impact. Blood squibs, practical explosions, and real stunts create a grounded and brutal feel that's rarely seen in late 2000s action films, where CGI was a cheaper option and was used willy-nilly. On to rewatchability. So will I rewatch this one again? I probably will. Jean Claude Van Damme gives a very underrated performance in this one. And while the film is not perfect, the tone, the feel, and the performances, they all work together to make this a worthy watch. If you're a fan of Jean Claude Van Damme and Dolphlundgren, or just solid action films, this one's definitely worth your time. Just don't dig too deep into the plot holes or you might fall in. Final verdict. Universal Soldier Regeneration is a surprisingly effective reboot that trades the glossy spectacle of its predecessors for gritty realism and brutal action. John Hyams' direction reinvigorates the franchise, embracing a darker, more grounded tone. While it does stumble with underdeveloped characters and a very simplistic plot, the bone-crushing fights, atmospheric setting, and Van Damme's weary performance make it a very much standout entry. Is it as good as the original? No. Is it better than the last one? Yes. And that is one thing we see a lot in sequels. The law of diminishing returns. This one, however, it's much better than its predecessor. Overall, for a score, I would give Universal Soldier Regeneration a 7 out of 10. And there you have it. That is my review. Have you seen Universal Soldier Regeneration? If you have, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Like I said, I thought this was a great way to reinvigorate the series. And as I mentioned, it's something that for a series to have some longevity, it needs to do something different. Whether it works, whether it doesn't, you know. But anyway, look, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please do hit that thumbs up button. It'd be much appreciated. And of course, if you've listened to me talk about this film so far, might as well hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I do release a new review. And stick around because we've got some great ones coming up. You know, more Franchise Fridays on the way. And of course, Trashy Tuesdays. There's some fun ones coming up for those. So yeah, stick around for those. But have a great day. Bye.
Ninja on the prowl, Franchise Fridays is going wild. Oh, yeah. Zombies, vampires, ready to haunt. Movie nights never mild.